Louie T, welcome to the command post. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your commander-in-chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me on this LouieTeeNetwork exclusive, the next 7 at the wide receiver position. So this is a little bit different, something that I have never done before. And I got this idea from one of the comments in the comment section of the wide receiver video. And the commenter essentially said, hey, look, we already know who the top 3 are. It's going to be Neighbors, Odunze, and Harrison Jr. in some way, shape, or form. And so it would have been really intriguing and interesting to see what the list would have looked like starting at 4 and working your way down that way. And it got me to thinking, I could do you one better. I can give you my next 7 guys on the list in terms of the receiver position. I've done the work already, so why not, right? So we know this is an incredibly deep class of wide receivers, and I wouldn't be shocked if we get through, anywhere from 13 to 17, maybe upwards of 18 receivers through the first 2 days of the draft. You could see 5 or 6, possibly 7 go in the first round. You could see another 5 or 6 go in the second round, and another 4 or 5 go in the third round. It's not out of the realm of possibility that you see, somewhere in that neighborhood of 15 to 20 receivers coming off the board. I think the number's somewhere in that 13 to 18 range, but it just speaks to the amount of talent. And again, the faucet doesn't shut off after day 2. You go into day 3, and I think there's still going to be a lot of talented receivers left on the board. That said, I want to give you my next 7 of the receiver class. I gave you 8 guys in total. Remember, I had a 7A and a 7B. Adonai Mitchell was 7A. Ricky Pearsall, receiver out of Florida, was 7B. So I gave you 8 essentially for the top 7. Now I'm going to just pick up right where that list left off essentially and get to my number 8 wide receiver in this year's draft class. And it's Roman Wilson. All right. This is a guy out of Michigan that had a fantastic senior season for the Michigan Wolverines en route to the national championship. They don't win it without Roman Wilson. This guy put up some big-time numbers this year, specifically in the touchdown department. 12 touchdowns this year for Roman Wilson. That's like top 10 in FBS this season. And he was huge. And the game that really stuck out to me was the game against Alabama. And he had some big touchdowns throughout the course of the year. Again, they don't make it as far as they went and ultimately win the national championship without his contribution and his ability to find the end zone. But it was the final drive that kind of said to me, all right, Roman Wilson's about that life. Going up and grabbing that football in a crucial moment in that game, and then ultimately scoring the touchdown that tied the game up, sent it to OT. And he was fantastic in that football game and was fantastic for Michigan this past season. And I just see this as a guy that I think there's another level he can get to as a receiver if put in a system, in an offense where he's allowed to shine a bit more. Remember, Michigan's a ball control, run the football type of offense, and there's nothing wrong with that. And they had a formula. The defense was outstanding. The run game was dominant. Their O-line, really controlled the tempo and pace of the game, and they were able to really, lean on teams, wear on them, and then when they needed to, throw the football. And Roman Wilson was, one of the guys that was able to benefit from that. But I think if you put him in a wide open offense, one of these teams that slings it around the field and spreads you out, you put him in an Oregon type offense, he would have had ridiculous numbers, right? You put him in an offense where, like Oklahoma's, where they're spreading you out and they're going to throw the football a bunch. There's no telling what kind of numbers he would have posted. And so I think there's another level that he can tap into. At 5'11", 185, he's a lot bigger than I thought he was going to kind of weigh in at. And size-wise, I thought he looked on the screen, he looks tiny. He looks like he's 5'9", like a $175. But to be 5'11", 185, it only confirmed what I thought watching him on tape, which is my comp for him. He's Brandon Cooks. I think he's got a chance to really be extraordinary at the next level. And we know what Brandon Cooks has been in this league as a receiver. Everywhere he goes, he's a walking 1,000-yard wide receiver is Brandon Cooks, essentially. He's been on like 90 different teams, and he's probably had 1,000 yards for every single one of them to this point of his career. So I see Roman Wilson coming in this league and having a chance to do damage if he's in the right system that allows him to not just be a guy that can win with quickness in the slot. He can take you uptown and go vertical as well. So the 4.39 speaks to that. He's quick. He's fast. He can get in and out of breaks. He can uncover. He's tough. He can catch outside of his catch radius. There's a lot to like with Roman Wilson, and I think he's a guy that is going to be really good in this league. And so he's my 8th best receiver in this draft. You go to number 9, and it's Xavier Legette. And this is a guy that a lot of people thought would be probably higher on my list. I had a lot of people asking me, well, you know, I'm surprised he wasn't in your top 7. Well, that's because he wasn't worthy of being in my top 7. Just because I like him doesn't mean that I'm just going to thrust him up the list because, you know, of my affinity for his game and what I think he could be at the next level. There's still others that are better than him, and he's extremely raw. This is more about him and less about, I could probably say it's more about the other guys and how good they are and less about him, but it's a combination of the two, honestly. There are a lot of good receivers in this draft class, as we've talked about, but he's also extremely raw, is Xavier Legette. 6'1", 221. He's a senior out of South Carolina. This guy has never had 30 or more targets in a season leading up to this past year. This was the first year where he got an opportunity to really shine, and he took full advantage of it, posting massive numbers, 71 catches, over 1,250 yards, and 7 touchdowns. So he made the most of the opportunity, but he's extremely raw. He's not a route runner at this point of his career. He's a height, weight, speed, physical specimen right now. He can also return kicks, had a kickoff return for a touchdown in his career. The 4.39 40 is legit. You see it on tape. He can go up and high point the football, but there's still a lot more growth for him and development as a receiver. But you love the frame, you love the speed, you love the physicality, you love the ability to go high point the football. There's a lot to like here, and I think he's got #1 wide receiver ability written all over him, but he's going to have to continue to grow and develop as a receiver, as a route runner. Understand the nuances of sitting down in zone coverage and things of that nature, how to use his physicality to shield off defenders and create a little bit more separation. And as he continues to grow into that type of receiver, with all the things that he already is capable of doing, he's going to become even more dangerous. But I just love the entire package that is Xavier Legette to this point. And I think he's going to hear his name called sometime in day number 2 of this draft because of all the things that he brings to the table. And so my comp for him is Roy Williams, the former Texas wide receiver. You know, similar frame. Williams was a lot taller, though. I think Roy Williams was probably like 6'3", but similar size, you know, in terms of weight, similar speed. You know, Roy Williams was a track guy, and Roy Williams wasn't much of a route runner, right? He was one of those guys that you throw him a slant and he could take it the distance. Roy Williams was one of those dudes you could throw it to him deep, he could go up, climb the ladder, and go get it. But he was never really much of a dynamic route runner or anything like that. He was just a raw athlete that could make things happen with the ball in his hands or just throw it up to him and he can go get it. And that's where Xavier Legette is right now, right? And we'll see if he evolves into something much more than that. But right now, he's like kind of like a DK Metcalf type of guy, right? Where just get it to him and we'll figure out the rest. Throw it to him, let him go get it, you know, let him be physical. Just get it in his hands and let him do work. And I think he'll benefit from that if he lands in the right spot. But this guy's super talented, and he's my #9 wide receiver in this draft class. Speaking of Xaviers, we keep that train going with another Xavier, this time Xavier Worthy of the University of Texas. This is a guy that is well known for his speed. We all know about the record-setting 40 time at the Combine, the 4.21 40, well documented. That kind of put him on the map for a lot of people who weren't really familiar with what he was doing at the University of Texas. This is a guy that had tons of production all 3 years of his career at Texas. So it's not like he's a one-trick pony or a guy that, you know, just burst onto the scene with this 4.21 40. This is a guy that's been posting numbers at Texas. One of the things that always struck me as odd with him, like even this year, you know, 75 catches, 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns. Very good numbers, by the way. But that average is not, you know, that doesn't speak to a 4.21 40, right? You would expect a guy like him to, you know, only 44 catches, but it's for that same 1,000 yards, and you look up and he's averaging 22 yards a catch. That's what you expect with a guy with the kind of speed that Xavier Worthy has, but you don't see that, right? You don't see a lot of him exploiting the defense. Sometimes he gets behind the defense and the throw might be a little bit errant, but a lot of times they're utilizing his speed to get throws underneath. And you see that a lot of times with guys with that kind of speed. Guys, you don't want to get beat. So you're backing off, you're bailing quicker than you normally would, which is going to open up easy opportunities underneath to throw the football to these guys. And that's what they did at Texas. I want to see what happens at the next level, because the reason he's so low on my list is because he's small, clearly at 5'11", 165. He's a small guy. He's diminutive. And you see him struggle with physicality. And, you know, I get it. You got to get your hands on him first. And at that 4.21, it's going to be tough because there's not going to be many guys that want to challenge him at the line of scrimmage. And you don't want to get beat, so you're just looking to open up and run more so than get your hands on him. But at the point of catch, if you're physical with him, you can get him to drop the football. You can disrupt his routes because he's not a physical guy and he's small. And so I saw a lot of that on tape where he was, you know, disjointed sometimes, thrown off of his path, you know, wasn't strong enough at the point of catch to make a catch when it was contested. And then one of the biggest knocks for me is, where's the average, bro? Where's that, you know, where's the big 82-yard, 75-yard, 66-yard catch and run, or just over the top because you're so fast? Obviously, teams are keying in on him. They're not going to try to let him get behind him. But even Tyreek Hill, we know he's fast. Teams know he's going to get the football, and they still get it to him, and he still runs by everybody. That's what you're expecting when you see this type of speed, and you just didn't see that enough on tape. At least I didn't. So I have questions. We'll see if Xavier Worthy has the answers or not. But again, you can't teach what this guy has. And my comp for him is Travis Benjamin. A lot of people forget just how fast Travis Benjamin was when he came into the NFL out of the University of Miami. And he was one of those vertical threats that scared the living daylights out of people. And that's the same way Xavier Worthy is going to enter the league. But the problem with Travis Benjamin, and the same problem I see with Xavier Worthy, is he's so damn small. And guys used to toss Travis Benjamin around, make it hard for him to get vertical. But when he did get vertical, he was a problem. We'll see if Xavier Worthy can be more like Deshaun Jackson and less like Travis Benjamin. But right now, he's Travis Benjamin. And I want to see him turn into Deshaun Jackson, right? But I didn't see that on tape. So let's get to my number 11 wide receiver, and it's Troy Franklin. And, you know, there are probably 2 or 3 guys that I just don't agree with the masses on these particular players, and Troy Franklin is one of them. A lot of people see this tremendous upside, and they think he could be one of the steals of the draft, and he may ultimately end up being exactly that. He posted some massive numbers at Oregon. You see some talent there, but there are a couple of offenses that it's just hard to really gauge how good of a receiver you are in these offenses because of the nature of these offenses. One of them is Oregon, and another one is UCF, and there's a UCF Knight on this list as well. But you're just so wide open in the Oregon offense. There's so much space created, you know, and you're allowed to work really unabated a lot of times in that Oregon offense, which is why a lot of people question Bo Nix, because it's so easy for you to have a high completion percentage. Bo Nix, as we know, set the NCAA record, the FBS record for the highest completion percentage in a single season. But a part of that is short passes, which Troy Franklin did benefit from. And then a lot of it, too, is guys are running wide ass open because of the nature of that Oregon scheme and setup. And Franklin was one of the beneficiaries of that. 6'2", 176 pounds. We're going to talk about that weight here in a second. 4'4", 140. So he can fly. He can pick him up and put him down. But that 176, similar to what I talked about with Xavier Worthy, is a little off-putting. With Worthy, you get it, right? With Franklin, he's 6'2", though. So he's a little bit more lanky, more surface area to put your hands on. I think he's going to struggle. And we saw him struggle in college football with physicality, right? It's similar to Xavier Worthy. You watched him struggle with guys when he was when they were physical with him. The problem was oftentimes there was no physicality, so he was allowed to run free into the secondary, and that's when he's a problem. Once he gets the ball in his hands, he's got that kind of angle beating speed that really hurts you. And so I think there is some talent here without question, but I'm not blown away by what I've seen. And I question how much of this translates to the next level unless you can like get him to uncover, unless you can scheme it up to where he's wide ass open. And we got some very innovative and creative guys in this league that can scheme it up, that can get Troy Franklin free and allow him to be who he is. But if you put him in a scheme where guys are allowed to be handsy with him and be physical, I just can't see him continuing to put up the kind of numbers. This guy set an Oregon record this year with 1,383 yards receiving and 14 touchdowns, which is also an Oregon school record. He put up massive numbers. That's not on accident, but can it translate to the next level where the physicality is going to ramp up and you're running with guys that are similar type athletes? So I'm interested to see what happens. And my comp for him kind of is disrespectful in a way. But it really is, but it isn't at the same time. My comp for Troy Franklin is Tyquan Thornton, who was a second-round pick a couple of years ago by the New England Patriots. I thought he was overdrafted by the Patriots then, out of Baylor. Nothing has changed. He hasn't done anything in the league since then, but Tyquan Thornton, 6'2", like 180 pounds or whatever, slight build, just like Troy Franklin, had put up massive numbers at Baylor, running around in a wide open offense with all that speed, gets to the NFL, teams are more physical with him, he can't separate as easily, and obviously they've had some issues at the quarterback position in New England, they've had issues with play calling, and then Thornton himself has had issues staying healthy, but I see a lot of Tyquan Thornton in Troy Franklin or vice versa, and he's going to have to prove to me that he's not Tyquan Thornton. He's going to have to prove to me that he is some other wide receiver in the league that has the ability to make big plays and, you know, be able to be a difference maker at the receiver position. He's going to have to prove to me that he's more of that kind of receiver than he is Tyquan Thornton at this point. And so we'll see what he ultimately ends up declaring himself as. Right now, he's Tyquan Thornton to me, and I'm not as high on Troy Franklin as a lot of people out there are. At number 12 is a guy that I really like a lot, and that's Malik Washington, the diminutive slot receiver out of the University of Virginia. 5'8", 191, ran a 4.47 40 at the combine. And, you know, the first thing that stuck out to me with Malik Washington was the high volume targets, catches, yards, etc. He was Mr. Everything for that UVA offense. 110 catches, which led all of college football this season. 1,426 yards, which was good for fourth in FBS, and 14 touchdowns again. Or excuse me, 9 touchdowns, which led the Cavaliers this season as well. You know, you see that amount of catches and you know, okay, he's getting a lot of underneath targets, a lot of hitches, a lot of slants, a lot of stops, comebacks. You know, he's getting these pivot routes, things of that nature. And that was the case, right? But then he could also go up the field. He made some acrobatic catches, diving catches up the field. Some nice double moves because you're so accustomed to him running these underneath routes. So when he decides to take that out that he's been running, you know, 5 or 6 times in a row and converts it to an out and up, got him. right? And he goes and gets it too. I just really like Malik Washington, and he's physical. He's hard nosed. He catches everything for the most part. I love his game, and it translates to the next level. And I think he's going to be a problem. And I don't think he's scheme dependent. You put him anywhere, he's going to fit in. You know, you give him an opportunity to work your slot, he's going to do exactly that. And look, I don't think that his size should be a deterrent. When you look at the production, and he's 5'8", so he's not the tallest guy, but he's 190 pounds. So, you know, in that frame, that's a thick frame for a 5'8" guy. You know, normally you hear 5'8", you're thinking, okay, 170 something. This guy's 190 pounds, so you know he's a sturdy guy running at 4.47, and you see that. There's just so much to like with Malik Washington, man. I'm in love with his game, and you know, my comp for him is a guy that I thought had a very promising career, and then injuries kind of just beset his career, and that's Sterling Shepard. And if you remember Sterling Shepard coming out of Oklahoma, he was that guy. He was a dog coming out of Oklahoma. And early in his career with the Giants, he was a dog. And then the injuries just kind of took effect, and he just became a jag over time. But Malik Washington has a lot of dog in him, and he gives me Sterling Shepard vibes. And again, I don't think it matters what kind of scheme or system you put him in. Just stick him in the slot and let him go to work, and watch him do work for you. And I think that's what you're going to see in this draft. And I'm be interested to see where he ends up, how early he goes in this draft, because again, he may not be for everybody, right? That 5'8" may scare some teams away. Doesn't scare me. I see talent. I see a guy that's physically built to last, and I see a guy that is playing with a chip on his shoulder, essentially, right? Knows he's short a guy, knows people are going to count him out and doubt him, and he plays much bigger than the 5'8" size indicates. So he is number 12. Number 13 is a guy, speaking of physicality and playing big, is Malachi Corley out of Western Kentucky. This is a guy that is drawn comparisons to Deebo Samuel with his play style, very physical, breaks a number of tackles, a lot of underneath catches, or as we like to call them, extended handoffs, you know, in that Western Kentucky offense, where they just essentially get it to him and try to get him out in space and let him become a running back of sorts. I think it's low-hanging fruit, and I don't mind you pulling that fruit off the tree and taking a bite out of it, because I could easily see how somebody could look at his game and say he's Deebo Samuel 2.0. At 5'11", 215, which is essentially what Deebo was coming out of South Carolina. Running at 4.47, Deebo ran something like a 4.46 coming out of South Carolina. The similarities are striking. And when you watch how many tackles he breaks and how physical he is with the ball in his hands, I get it. And they gave it to him out of the backfield. They found creative ways to get him to touch it, just like South Carolina did with Deebo Samuel. But I think the biggest difference is Deebo was kind of built like a running back. And even though his frame suggests that it's the same as Deebo, it doesn't look the same to me, at least. Malachi Corley looks like a receiver that just is a bit physical. And I think the comp that I have for him is more suggestive of what I think he can be and what that player was coming into the draft and what he's morphed into. And I think Malachi Corley could morph into that if given an opportunity. He had a massive 2022 season, did Malachi Corley. Not as big of a season in 2023, but this is a guy that has massive production, set the Western Kentucky record for most catches in school history over the life of his career with over 240 some odd catches. So this is a guy that did work while at school. And my comp for him is DJ Moore. A lot of people see Deebo Samuel. People forget DJ Moore caught a lot of underneath balls at Maryland. DJ Moore was almost like a pseudo running back because of all the injuries that they had and how they had to utilize him. I remember saying, can DJ Moore even run routes? Because they don't run routes with him. They just get him the ball and he just does the rest. And he was so physical. And if you remember, early in DJ Moore's career, he was utilized almost like a gadget guy, almost like hey, let's just get it in DJ Moore's hands. He wasn't that good of a route runner, and as time progressed, he got better as a route runner. He became a bit more polished. There were drops early in his career that kind of subsided a bit, and he's more consistent in that avenue as well. So Malachi Corley does have some concentration drops on tape. He's not much of a route runner, if you ask me right now. He's a get it in his hands now and let him do some work and be physical. That's how I felt about DJ Moore coming out. But I've watched DJ Moore evolve, and I think if you give Malachi Corley an opportunity to evolve and not just say, hey, let's just get it to him, I think he's more than just a Deebo Samuel type guy. I think Deebo Samuel is in a class of his own. He's a different dude. I don't like putting that on a player unless it is deserved. I don't think Malachi Corley is Deebo Samuel. I'm sorry. I can't give him that. But I do think he's DJ Moore. And so we'll see what he ultimately, maybe he does come in the league. It's one thing to be running dudes over in the SEC as Deebo Samuel was doing. It's another thing to be running guys over in what conference is that Conference USA he was playing in at Western Kentucky? It's different when you're running dudes over at Conference USA, right? Try that shit on the train, right? Try that in the NFL, and if he can, then maybe I'll change my tune. But right now, and it's not like I'm calling him some scrub. DJ Moore is one of the top receivers in the league right now. So I think he's got a bright future. We'll see what he turns into. He's my number 13 wide receiver. And then my last receiver in this group is UCF wide receiver Javon Baker, former transfer from Alabama over to UCF. Put up some big numbers. Man, that average per catch is through the roof. This is a guy that averaged 22 yards per catch this past season at UCF, which is not a surprise. I hate UCF's offense. If you ask me what is the worst offense to watch a receiver operate in college football, and has been for a while now, it's UCF. This offense is so trash. Where they line their receivers up outside the numbers, damn near out of bounds, right? Give their receivers no space to operate up the boundary. Guys get pushed out of bounds all the time. This is the same shit they used to do with the ex-Buffalo Bill wide receiver that just signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars, Gabe Davis. I remember hating Gabe Davis's tape for the same exact reason. All they did with Gabe Davis is line him up damn near out of bounds, and he'd somehow tightrope the sidelines and then run a go route up, and they throw it to him, and that's how he averaged like 20 yards a catch. And that's what Javon Baker was doing a lot of times. But he also can work the middle of the football field. At 6'1", 202 pounds, ran a 4.54 40. I thought, the 40 is accurate because there are times where he struggled to separate, if you ask me. But somehow he would always find a way to get on top of a defender and make a play. And I thought this comp was very easy, right? As soon as I saw him, I said, oh, that's Devontae Parker all day long, all day strong. Like, Parker's a little bit taller, and coming out of Cincinnati, he was faster. But, man, the similarities are striking. I'm like, man, am I watching Devontae Parker or what? Their games kind of mirror one another. And I'll be interested to see where Javon Baker is on a lot of people's boards and where he ends up and what the opinion of him is. Because I'm intrigued by Javon Baker. I think there's a lot there. They asked a lot of him at UCF, but really they used him as a deep threat. 22 yards per catch for a guy that runs a 4.54 40. And again, it looked like 4.54. When I watched him on tape, I hadn't seen his 40 time yet. I said, that doesn't look like 4.4 to me. That looks like 4.5 something. Then I go check, it's 4.54. I said, okay, that checks out. That looks to me looks the part. And but yet he still managed to do it. And he's physical with the ball in his hands. Again, gives me Devontae Parker vibes. So that's my next 7. What says you? Leave it down in the comment section. I noticed, or you noticed probably, that there is an omission there. Keon Coleman. I am not high on Keon Coleman. I've seen mock drafts, and many of them, that have Keon Coleman going early stages of the second round. Some even have him in the first round. I don't get it. I'm at a loss. I wonder, this is something that I wonder, because sometimes there's a disconnect between talent evaluators in the NFL, and draft prognosticators and people who evaluate for the purposes of viewing pleasure, right? Our consumer consumption. Sometimes there's a disconnect. I wonder if there's one with Keon Coleman or not. Maybe I'm tripping, and the evaluators, the talent evaluators around the league, think he's a stud receiver too. I just didn't see it, and I'd love to talk more about him with you guys if you'd like, but we'll probably have time to do that during the draft. I'm assuming he'll get drafted either day 1 or 2, and you know, I'll be live and I'll be able to talk about it when he gets selected. But that's my list, and I'm sticking to it. What says you? Leave it down in the comment section. Tell me what you think. Did I leave somebody off? Is somebody too high? Is somebody too low? I'd love to hear from you guys. In any event, that's my next 7. I thank you guys for joining me. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. Until next time. You guys have a good one. Peace.
Louie T Network.